Good morning. Peace and love, everyone. Hey, Robert. Hey, Ann. Hi, everybody. Welcome. Thanks for being here live. Thanks for being here by recording. Paying attention to the birds outside. I think I've been keeping them up too loud. Anyway, today, the eye of the heart, seeing beyond reflection in the Gospel of Mary. I guess I'm going to turn them down outside because the cars are coming by now. It's summertime here on the coast of Maine. Hey, Noah, how are you this morning? Oh, I almost knocked something over. Anyway, hi, peace and love, dear souls, friends, and welcome to Not Church. Mysticism, East and West, and no doctrine and no dogma. And today in Not Church, we're going to turn to a pivotal message in the Gospel of Mary in chapter 7. Good morning, Sean. Chapter 7. Hey, Sharon. I'm glad you're out of the hospital. Chapter 7 in the Gospel of Mary, which is pretty short. And just a few verses, Mary Magdalene recounts her vision of the risen Christ, a moment that both affirms her spiritual maturity and offers us a deep teaching on divine perception. So we're going to pick up where we left off. Good morning, James. Let's just spend a moment and gather together. I'm back after a long absence because of health issues. I'm glad you're back, Jamie. I called you James, didn't mean that. Hi, Jamie. Welcome back. All right. Let's just take a moment here and gather ourselves together. Guide our hearts, guide our minds, lead us home. Amen. So picking up where we left off last week, Mary says, quote, I saw the Lord in a vision, and I said to him, Lord, I saw you today in a vision. Jesus responds, how wonderful you're not wavering at seeing me. For where the mind is, there's the treasure. Then she asks, so now, Lord, does a person who sees a vision see it with the soul or with the spirit? And Jesus answers, a person does not see with the soul or with the spirit. Rather, the mind, the nous, the eye of the heart, which exists between these two, sees the vision. So let's pause there just a moment, because we never hear Jesus' complete answer. This is where the text cuts off. But even in this truncated form, this passage opens a gateway into the essence of spiritual seeing, into how the divine reality is perceived. The eye of the heart. In this passage, Jesus introduces the concept, the experience, which is unfamiliar to many modern readers, but it's central to ancient mystical understanding of and we've encountered this before, the nous, N-O-U-S, the nous, a Greek term often translated as mind, but more precisely referring to the spiritual faculty of the heart. It's not analytical thought, but the subtle intuitive perception that sees and experiences the real, uppercase R, the real, the reality. This concept, this experience of reality has deep roots across mystical traditions. We find it elsewhere. In Sufi Islam, Al-Ghazali, who we've talked about before, he wrote, the heart has an eye by which it sees the unseen world, just as the eye of the body sees the visible. Right there, the eye of the heart. The eye of the heart is echoed in Isaiah, the prophet Isaiah, from the Torah, from the Old Testament, from the Bible. Their hearts have become calloused. Otherwise, they might see with their eyes, hear with their ears, understand with their hearts, and turn and be healed. May it be so for all of us. It's from Isaiah 6. The spiritual anthropology is reflected in Christian monastic thought. The same thing. Thomas Merton, American monk, describes it poetically. At the center of our being is a point of nothingness, a pure diamond, blazing with the invisible light of heaven. Maybe that's shown on you. Maybe you've felt that. Maybe you've read Conjectures of a Guilty Bystander by Thomas Merton. It's totally worth reading. Conjectures of a Guilty Bystander. This center, like the noose, the eye of the heart, is silent, and it's a secret place where divine wisdom takes root, not in reason, and certainly not in dogma, but in direct spiritual perception. And you've maybe seen this blazing point once. I saw it once, twice, that when I was outside of time, outside of space, in this place so still and alive that it burned itself into my soul. In my near-death experience, it was not my physical eyes that I saw with, because I didn't have any eyes, nor even with what I might call spirit or soul. It was this energy essence of myself. And I say myself, but it was radiated and created by the divine. And it's with this deeper awareness that Jesus points to. It's that thing, that eye in between, the eye wherein I see God, God sees me, the noose, the eye of the heart. And perhaps you've had a similar experience. So please let me know if you have. Make a comment. Let me know. Have you had that experience where you've seen with the eye of the heart, either exteriorly or interiorly? Please make a comment. Let me know. And sometimes even after such a vision, our hearts can become hardened, me included. Of course, me included. So let's talk about Mary's stability. Jesus says, "Oh, you didn't get upset at seeing me," and her spiritual maturity. Jesus says, "How wonderful you are." Yeshua, Jesus, call him by any name. "How wonderful you are for not wavering at seeing me." You know, one of the things we don't talk about very much is the fear of the divine, and the awe is a better word. In the Bible, we talk about the fear of God, but a better translation of that is the awe. And Mary doesn't waver, but others do. I did once. In the Bible, the divine encounters often evoke awe, fear, collapse. Moses, Exodus 3, he hides his face because of the burning bush. Daniel, chapter 10, collapses in fear when the angel appears. Zechariah in Luke 1 is startled and silenced by the appearance of the angel. And in one of my visions, about which I rarely speak, I was petrified, in awe meaning wonder and fear, in awe of what I saw of the majestic with a capital M. And if you remind me, I'll talk about it at Mystic Sea Salon. I don't talk about it very often because it people are afraid of that story, that truth. But I'll tell you how in many of my visions, eventually I waver and I get kicked out when I become self-aware, aware of myself. But Mary, she doesn't waver. Her stability reflects her spiritual maturity. As Harvard University professor Karen L. King notes in her book, where is it? Right here. In her book, as she notes in her book, Karen L. King, in ancient thought, wavering implies inner instability. Mary's steadfastness reveals an inner life so grounded in the divine presence that she meets the risen Christ with calm clarity. This spiritual maturity also finds resonance in Zen Buddhism, where the ideal is not emotional ecstasy or intellectual grasp, but deep presence. The real seeing is not through the eyes, but through the mind itself. T.D. Suzuki, Zen and Zen Culture, from that book. Zen calls this kensho, seeing one's true nature. It's a similar kind of seeing that Mary demonstrates, a stability grounded in not belief, but in being. Where the mind is, there the treasure is. And that's a little different from what we hear elsewhere in Matthew. Where the mind is, there's the treasure. And Jesus says, where the mind is, there's the treasure. And this echoes the canonical Bible teaching, for where your treasure is, that's where your heart is also. Matthew 6. And in both of these, because where your mind is, in our case here, it means nous, it means the eye of the heart. In both cases, we're reminded that the orientation of our inner being determines what we value and perceive. In Mary's gospel, the treasure is present in the moment of the vision. She has this energy exchange with Jesus. In Matthew, it points toward the heart's alignment. So in Mary's gospel, it's in the moment. In Matthew's gospel, it's a kind of a future alignment. There your heart will be in Matthew. And together, taken together, these suggest that the treasure, they're not opposites, okay? They're combined. It suggests that the treasure is imminent now and transcendent above when the heart is correctly aligned. It's here and then. It's here and above. And access to this treasure can fluctuate because we're human, according to the softening and hardening of our nous, because, we're just human beings, and I know this all too well myself. Whenever I get in the way, whenever I put my selfish self first, my mystical heart gets skimmed over, kind of like an ice pond. And yes, when I close my eyes and step aside, I see with my other eye, the eye wherein I see God. God sees me. Make your eye single and your body will be filled with light. It's Jesus. As the Sufi Rumi, beloved Rumi wrote, close both eyes to see with the other eye. Close both eyes to see with the other eye. The other eye is the eye of the heart. And it's through this eye that the real with a capital R is perceived, not as a concept or a hope or an idea, but as a presence and communion, union, common union, communion. St. Paul describes it in his language. The peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds. Philippians 4. The treasure is within. Jesus said, the realm of God is within you. Luke 17. The nous, the eye of the heart, when it's open and pure, it becomes the very organ through which heaven is both seen and entered. It's the doorway is the eyeball. Would that we could live in this state in a permanent way with such openness. Now let's talk about the true vision is spiritual, not sensory. Mary asks Jesus, do we see with the spiritual, with the soul? Let me get that right. Do we see with the soul or do we see with the spirit? And Jesus is like, no. He gives this radical answer. It's not with the soul. It's not with the spirit. It's with the nous, the eye of the heart, which exists between the two. This in-between realm, this space between what the Gospel of Mary calls soul and spirit, and let's not get into the weeds with that, is known to mystics across traditions. It's the spiritual center, the still point, the beginning, the place where we touch the center of the self, the subtle self. And my hero, Meister Eckhart, he wrote, the eye wherein I see God is the same eye with which God sees me, one eye. This eye, the doorway of the heart. And this is what Mary is experiencing when she's talking to Jesus, only she doesn't have language for it. He does. This is the same eye Jesus speaks of to Mary, a shared faculty of direct communication in your natural being. It's not a literal eye, of course. It's a metaphorical, metaphysical center, what the Sufis call the hidden heart, and what Zen calls the original mind. And in the Gospel of Thomas, heaven is spread out upon the earth, but people don't see it. Why? That's Logion 113. They don't see it. Why don't they see it? because they're looking with the wrong eyes. The nous, the inner eye, must be cleansed continually, worked on, and awakened. And at the same time, the true vision itself can purify the inner eye. Having a vision purifies the eye itself. So it's both the means that we work toward it and the grace it's given to us. The eye of the heart. And so here's my conclusion for today. A teaching for the heart. This passage from the Gospel of Mary presents a model of mystical Christianity that's deeply rooted in Scripture, like in the canon, but not really recognize that it's there because they're looking with the wrong eyes. But it's deeply rooted in Christian, excuse me, in Christian, in the canonical Gospels, but particularly in the Gospel of Thomas and Mary. And it's profoundly human. It's absolutely natural to us, and it's universally relevant. Relevant. That's what I meant. Vision doesn't arise from intellectual agreement or belief or emotional intensity. I'm really emotionally intense. No, it has nothing to do with any of those things. It emerges from the awakening of the nous, the eye of the heart. And it can awaken again and again and again. It's like a swinging door. It swings open, it closes, swings open, it closes. You keep that oiled and keep opening that door, and pretty soon it stays open longer. It doesn't mean that it won't close, okay? And pop back open again because we're human beings. But it's an awakening of the heart. And this teaching isn't only found in Mary's gospel. All right. It's not just Mary. It's in the Psalms. It's in the prophets. It's in the Beatitudes. And it's confirmed by mystics from around the world, Christian mystics, Sufi mystics, Buddhist mystics, and more. They all bear witness to this shared truth with a capital T. That the divine, with a capital D, is seen through inner stillness, purity of heart, and direct knowing. And in two words, the presence. The presence. And sometimes it's intense and sometimes it's weaker. Sometimes it's really energetic and sometimes it's just a little energetic. But it never really goes away. And yes, it can skim over, but it never really goes away. And what's it take? It takes a reorientation of ourselves, not just through our contemplation and our prayers, our readings and our meditations, but by also refining our inner attention and intention. What do you really want? Where do we place our attention? Where we place our attention is our intention. What do we really want? The treasure we seek is already here. It's already here and has always been here. The eye that sees is already within you. So maybe we can say with Mary, I saw the Lord, not as an imagination, but as an accurate perception through the clarity of the heart. And if you're here, you have had that perception. And maybe you don't call it the Lord. Maybe you don't call it Yeshua. Maybe you don't, whatever you call it. If you've had that opening in your heart, the eye of the heart, in the present, and this is the big difference between the canonical Gospels and the Gospel of Mary, is that it's in the present. And the canonical Gospels in Matthew is sort of in the future. Out of the treasures of the heart, the mouth speaks. Or what's the direct quote? Let me skim back up. I want to get that right. Matthew. There we are. For where your treasure is, there your heart will also be. So it's out there, and Matthew, and it's in here, and Mary, and these two things are not in opposition. They're both true. This and, not either or. It grows and develops, and it's in the moment. So the Gospel of Mary really shifts this perspective because Mary has this experience of Jesus where he says, excuse me, pollen, it's very polleny right now, where he says, you don't waver. You're not wavering. You're steadfast. Oh, that we could all be so steadfast as Mary. And I think we talked about this last week, where the whole point of the Gospel of Mary is that the student becomes like the teacher. That's what's happening here. All right. So she asks him a question. She doesn't know everything. All right. But she's at the level of the teacher here in this. She doesn't waver. He doesn't waver. That's a very different thing. I came across an article yesterday, which unfortunately I wasn't able to open because I don't have a subscription to this particular newspaper. But part of the title included the many women disciples of Jesus ignored by the church. He had lots of women disciples, and Mary was the number one. So I hope that's helpful to people. I'll take a little tour through the chat over here, and we can meet at Mystic Tea Salon at the top of the hour. The link is in the description. You know, when I was a minister, I always made sure people understood, and Tom was one of my parishioners. I wanted people to understand that I had feet of clay. You know, it says the Bible, the statue has feet of clay. I'm just a person in pursuit of the same thing you are. And what I really need is already inside. That's really where it's at. It's not out there somewhere. It's not with some guru or some teacher. I'm just a student. I'm continuing. One of the reasons why I'm doing all of this is because I'm a student and I'm studying and learning. I've read the Gospel of Mary. I've never studied it. I'm studying it now, and we're studying it together. I'm a student. Students study. But Mary rose to this on par. And that's the biggest difference, is that Jesus isn't unreachable for Mary. Jesus is completely reachable, 100%. Let's take a look over here. I do that too. I get kicked out. I do not want to do that. Jamie, that's the same thing. As soon as I become self-aware, I'm out. I think it's like a thing with mystics. Let's talk about that at Mystic Tea Salon. The more I practice seeing with the eye of my heart, the more I see, says Ellen. This is totally true. The more you practice, the more you see. Splendor, says Tom. I was comforted. And I know for a fact, Tom, that you give comfort. I heard about what you did this past couple of weeks. I won't tell anybody, but wow, what a guy. Shelley, good morning, chat room. Hey, the mind of the heart, such purity to understand purity, says Robert. It's crazy that all of the existing texts are missing the same parts, says Martha. I know, it's crazy. Why is that? It's very suspicious. And I'm suspicious. Let's just say that I'm suspicious why they all cut off at that particular verse. In this chapter of Mary is where it gets cut off. And by the way, different scholars number these chapters differently. So today we're in chapter 7, but someone else have that as chapter 6. So this is a little confusing, but the words are, the same. And that's why I chose to work with this book, because she has this parallel. I should show you this. She has parallel, like this is one text translation and there's the other text translation. So these are two separate texts that they found, and she puts them both in. That's one of the reasons why I use her, is because she has this comparative going on. I don't know if I've seen the divine. I have felt the divine, says Michelle. So seeing and feeling are deeply connected, because on the other side, nobody really sees the light because we don't really have any eyes. It's an experience. There's this direct feeling, seeing thing. It's all kind of one thing. Here it can be separate, but definitely in the center of the heart, it's all one. Peggy, yes, let's talk about it. MTS. Okie dokie. Might want to remind me just in case. I was shown a flicker of the infinity, says Holly. My mind could not comprehend, but a flicker of it was unspeakably profound. That's all we need. A flicker, a flash, a snap, a glimpse. That's all that it takes. Just that tiny amount. Because when that happens, the fullness, in Christian language, the fullness of the Lord is present in that little tiny flicker. It's not so much about quantity as it is about quality. The quality is present in a flicker. Let's see. Survivorship reflecting is such that those who survived and feel bad as they were the only ones all seem to be alike, says Robert. Thank you for normalizing this journey in real time. A friend recently said to me that what I'm experiencing sounds like a fairy tale to her. It- I might have agreed a decade, but now I know. So before we go, my friend Wendy sent me a link this week that I listened to on YouTube, a monk, and I don't know his name. I think he's Buddhist. And in it, he talks about, and we should probably talk about this at Mystic Tea Salon too, or as Jesus put it, don't throw your pearls before the swine, which is kind of a low class way of saying it, got to say. But basically what he's saying is that the, there are those who just can't hear you, and the bridges get broken when you talk about it, and they hear it sounds like a fairy tale. So what's even the point of talking about it to them? And here I am talking about it publicly, but I'll tell you, I'd rather not. I'd rather just be quiet, because it well, like we can talk about that in Mystic Tea. You're right though, Alan. Hola, primary feathers. Hola to you too. Acceptance, security, rest. Yes, it's hard to let go when you think what you love will be lost. Kathy, yeah, that's a hard thing. I'll give another minute here, and then I'll open up the Zoom immediately and take a moment to step outside. When I was in meditation one night, I heard Jesus, like someone was in the room with me, and my eyes closed. Bright light came flooding in from the right hemisphere of my head, pure intention. This is how it happens. That's divine grace. That is the I wherein the I see God, God sees me. That is the thing we're talking about. Be not afraid. Yes, Jesus says that all the time. Says it to Peter in particular. I wish I could keep my eyes closed. That light was so warming and embracing. It's well, you'll get it again. I promise. I promise. I promise. I promise. And as you see it here in death, it comes to approach us as well. The eye of the heart, where you know what you know. The eye of the heart, where you know what you know, even if you can't say it. I've had that happen to me too, says Amy. I was so startled, I thought I was imagining it. That's the way. Rose, good morning, Rose. I was wondering where you've been at. I'm glad to see you here. Amy Brown, I did as well, and the light was so bright, I had to open my eyes. It can be blinding. Um, we are always connected to the divine, but not always aware of that and how powerful and pervasive it is. Absolutely. Joe, it was amazing how your message speaks directly to the questions and challenges of my spiritual life. God so wills, Joe. We're all in this together. The whole thing is one big weaving. Jamie, I've seen amazing sights, including Jesus and sacred symbols, and it startles me out of the state I need to be in, so I get kicked out. That's what happens to me too. I want to relax into it. Well, that's part of the project. That's why meditation helps. And we can talk about that too if you remind me. Meditation helps because it steadies the mind. Abundance of heart. All right, everybody, I should go. Talk anyway. People leave crazy people alone, says Kathy. People leave crazy people alone. That's totally true. All right, I'll see you in a minute. Mystic Tea Salon over in Zoom. Thank you for being here. Thanks for your support. Thanks for liking, subscribing, and all that stuff. But mostly, thanks for being here, and thanks for being at Mystic Tea Salon, because this is group wisdom over there. So see you there. Peace and love, everybody. I'll open it right up.